Hey y'all, happy Monday. So I felt like I needed to double back on this topic. I think it was last week or the week before last, I talked about burnout. And today I want to focus specifically on the fallout from burnout. So I talked to you all about how I was feeling. I didn't really say where I was in the stage of burnout, just that it was something that I was experiencing. And for me, over the last several weeks, it's begun to reach a head. And what that's looked like is like literally like me shutting down on a lot of things and extreme fatigue, exhaustion. The little rest that I am getting is further exacerbated by like bad dreams. I think I told y'all I'm a dreamer. And so um, personally, I feel like the enemy took advantage of me not being well rested to further attack my rest so I couldn't get any sleep. I've been having to work a lot of hours and longer hours because I'm in the middle of a series of big releases, and I'm one of the tech leads on my team. So a lot of that responsibility has fallen on me and the other tech lead. So we've been working weekends, we've been working late nights, and as you can imagine, everything in my life has suffered because of that. I've woken up or been awakened rather the next day and not really feeling rested, having to drop my son off, come home and go back to sleep for a couple hours so that way I could feel functional. Not really relating well to others, especially people I love, and mainly just feeling kind of lost. So it really came to a head for me this past week. And I already mentioned a little bit of how you can tackle it, which is, of course, by praying and spending time with God and resetting. But one of the biggest things that happened as a result of that is something that God told me to let go of. I just ignored messages about it and let it go because it was another thing on the to-do list that I know God has not graced me for in this season. And the unfortunate thing about burnout is like you just pretty much stop caring about anything. And I want to say the beautiful thing is that God met me in the middle of that. On Saturday, I spent most of the day between working, actually while I was working, listening to devotions on burnout. And literally every one of the ones that I finished, because I started them and finished them Saturday, they all ministered to me in that particular area. And it helped me to see that, I needed to make fast changes so that way this would not continue to have an effect on other areas of my life, including prioritizing self-care. So y'all know I get monthly massages, I get monthly facials, I go and get my nails and toes done once a month. If I'm not doing my own hair, I get my hair done. So I do all of these things as part of my self-care routine. Something I needed to add back into my self-care routine, at least for right now, is resume seeing my therapist. So I booked an appointment with my therapist. I also decided to reinvest in the area that I used to invest in before, which is having a babysitter. My son being in school now, I haven't been using her as often, mainly because, I work from home. I really didn't see a benefit at the time of having her to come over when I'm working and he's going to probably come bother me anyway. But now, being that he's back in school, I know that I need to take advantage of that to do things that matter and are important to me. Like I need to nurture relationships outside of my relationship with him. I need to do things that I enjoy doing. So I really like doing things with my hands, like art and building things. And so I'm gonna take more classes. Like I think I took I'm certain I posted about it. I took a class as part of my birthday for where I was able to create something for my house. And so I'm going to take more of those classes just because it'll give me that outlet of, one, being around people since I'm home all day, and then two, it'll give me that time where I'm just an individual and I'm not being a mother or an employee or something to someone else. And so it also forced me to have some conversations that I needed to have, even though they didn't come out the best way. And I'm grateful because I feel like ultimately that was necessary. It would have probably been better if I had said something a long time ago and would have addressed these things and not spoken up about how I was feeling. But as a result of just being tired and burnt out, like my natural tendency is to suppress because I'm a caregiver, so I want to take care of my family, the people I love. I want to make sure they're okay, and then I put myself last. And so I want to tackle and tap into that right there, because often as believers, you'll see two camps. You'll see those of us in the false humility, um, uh, I can't think of the word right now. It's another area that they talk about in emotionally healthy spirituality, but the false humility, and we're also like basically we're faking being happy. And then there are those of us who are angry, but we're actively doing something to work through that anger. And so in my case, like, I was ignoring my own needs because I felt like, as a servant, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to put myself last. But God always reminds me, and he's been doing this to me for years, ever since I came to understand this scripture that way. And it's basically the scripture about, the two commandments: to love God with all your heart, your mind, your strength, and your soul, and love others as you love yourself. Key thing is, you can't love others if you don't love yourself. And I want to talk about that just a little bit more because when we talk about self-care, when you hear about it on social media, you may hear about it from the perspective of like, oh, like going on trips by yourself, or things like going to get your nails done, your hair done, and toes done, or massages and things like that. Those things are important and essential, but the biggest way you can take care of yourself is making sure that you're dealing with you're taking care of your mental. You're addressing negative and toxic thoughts, toxic beliefs, and you're addressing anything that would hinder you from growing in relationships with others, as well as in your relationship with yourself. So self-care could be as simple as working out to deal with your stress, which is something that I've been trying to do pretty faithfully. And I realized that the other component that I need is, in addition to working out, I need that connection component, the connection with other adults, and being able to spend time with adults only instead of with my child and other adults. And so that being said, I really hope that if you ever experience burnout, like I've been experiencing it this year, that one, if God told you to let go of something, don't be like me and think you can rationalize or reason with God, because there's always a reason behind it. And I have to thank God again. He's just been pouring in me this whole weekend. What started out painfully, which was painfully pulling off that scab, it turned into a very cleansing and healing moment for me. And yesterday during the church sermon, Pastor Rama, because one of the churches that I virtually attend is Lighthouse Church of Houston, he was talking about how God subtracts things, and when he subtracts things, it's always for a reason, and it's always to give us something greater on the other side. That hit my spirit so much because I know God has been telling me to let go of certain things and to free up time in my schedule, because again, like the analogy of a rubber band, if you want to loosen it up, you have to stretch it out, but you also have to let it contract. You can't keep it under constant tension or it's going to break. And so God was taking away, not to take away from me, but he was taking away to help me have the space in my life to be able to deal with this, because God knew it was coming. And so if nothing, this has reinforced the need for me to immediately obey when God tells me to do something. And this has also reinforced the need for me to trust that God has my best interest at heart. God has never, ever, ever let me down. Even when it hurts, God never let me down. And God also, in the midst of all of this, gave me a beautiful reassurance about something that I have been questioning. And I'm just grateful because I made room. And it took me going through what I can't say was one of the worst experiences of my life, but it's up there on that list. It took me going through something that was very painful, like not only physically because of the physical exhaustion that I felt, but emotionally because it forced me to um, be honest with myself about some things, as well as get some tough love in a way. So again, I really want to just emphasize that self-care is not just going and doing all these different things. Self-care is a very complex term, but if we get good at it, that means we'll be able to love others better and um, also walk in being the best version of ourselves. So I don't know how I feel. I actually feel a lot better, to be honest, but I know I don't want to be the same, and I don't want to operate the same way I've been operating my entire life at this point. I want to be more intentional about everything going forward, and especially when it concerns obeying God the first time instead of him having to repeatedly tell me over and over again. Because I could just look back over the last 8 months of the year and see how, well, the last 8 months of this year and those last 2 months of 2021, and how I missed opportunities had I immediately obeyed. That could have been time that I was focusing on pouring back into myself that would have had me prepared for this situation that I've been in. So happy Monday, and I hope that this helps you to look at your own life and see where you can improve in regards to how you're taking care of yourself. How are you showing up for yourself? And then also, if you're dealing with burnout, one, if you need someone to talk to, you can always DM me and we could talk about our experiences. But two, my hope would be that you would go and get in the Word. And I will also tag one of the devotionals that I read. I think I took a screenshot of it, so I'll insert it at the end of this video. And yeah, just obey God. Don't be like me and think that you know better than God. And especially if it's something that you were hesitating to follow through with. Oh, last thing. Whenever God takes something from us, because this is something else that was said in the sermon yesterday, anytime that God takes something from us, it's always a matter of our heart. So if God takes a relationship away, if he takes an opportunity away, God is trying to examine our heart. He's not trying to hurt us, but he's trying to see if we trust him. Because all I can say is that if I would have trusted God these last 8 months, I wouldn't have been feeling burnt out. But such is life, and I'm just grateful to be now climbing out of it. And I will just do what he tells me to do going forward. Bye.